Ryan, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me.
How are you? How's your day going?
Fantastic. Another crazy day of ups and downs and all things real estate.
Every day, right?
Every day.
I want
That's
yeah, it makes life exciting. I mean, to me, it's a lot funner to, even though it can be stressful to have the day kind of pull you in different directions and different things pull up, other than, some jobs you go to work and you do the same ABC every single day. And to me, that can be boring. I know that works for some personalities, but I like entrepreneurship where you never know exactly what's going to happen.
That is very much true. We certainly don't know what's going to happen. I don't think any 2 days
Yeah,
are the same.
for sure.
Good.
I want to start out by talking how you got into entrepreneurship and real estate. What opened the door for you? What sparked your interest? What did you get started in?
Yeah. I have always been interested in finance and money, I guess, which is probably how I would say I started, was just like an intrigue with money. If you know me, you know that I am less now, but I've always just been like obsessed with saving. So that was kind of the start of the intrigue with money, which is funny to think about, but like, I don't know, like from a young age, my dad was always like, you got to save money to buy your car, right? When you turn 16 or whatever. And so when I was like a little kid, I was always just like, oh, I got to save my birthday money for a car or whatever. And then that turns into like save for college and then save for your first house. And now it's, it just continues to go up from there.
Yeah.
But that leads down a trail if you're like interested in that stuff. And I mean, I've never like really traced it back, but YouTube is a big part of it. Like Graham Stephan, if you know who that is, like that was the first person that I started watching. Just like explain financial topics, and then Bigger Pockets, shout out Bigger Pockets, was the first, like, that was who I knew as the real estate people. And we used to listen to every single new podcast they had and just listen to what other different people were doing. I had friends that house hacked, and that was our intro into like house hacking is a very feasible rental strategy.
Yeah.
And so we just replicated what they did on their house, on our current house, as far as house hacking goes, and spiral, it just all went from there. But yeah, and the roots of it is just like an intrigue with money and how it works. I mean, when you really dig into it, like it's interesting.
Very interesting. Yeah. I have a similar story, definitely just like diving into, my dad was the same way, save your money, save your money. And yeah, once I got to college, watching YouTube videos and then coming across mindset podcasts and then coming across Bigger Pockets, and same thing, it shifted everything for me. And I started out I wholesaled first and then I started house hacking. Do you guys have a duplex or what is it?
So that was the ideal house hack, right? It was like buy a duplex, triplex, quadplex, whatever. There definitely exist in Jacksonville where we are, but there's not a lot of them. So we actually got hooked up with a random realtor. Well, not random. We found him through Bigger Pockets, but we didn't know him or anything. And it was pretty funny. Like, he knew what we were gonna say. We found him on Bigger Pockets, and we were like, "Let me guess, you guys want a house hack, right?" Yeah, exactly. He's like, it might take us a year to find a house that's going to work for that. And we were on a short-ish timeline. We had like 2 or 3 months before we wanted to move. And so he was like, look, I know what you see in the books and like the podcast is this glamorous multi-unit, whatever, but you can do the same thing on single-family houses and you don't have to have people live in your house. So long story short, he ended up just finding us a house that had a flex space on it. And we fully imagined it into a duplex. So we like sectioned it off, built a bathroom, renovated the whole thing, turned it into a studio. So we kind of have a duplex, if you call it that, but not really. It's just like we sectioned off our house basically.
Yeah. That's really cool that you came across a realtor that like gave you good advice and was like, I have a way for you to accomplish your goals that you maybe haven't thought about before.
Yeah, he's awesome. It was a total, like I said, I guess it wasn't luck, but shout out to Bigger Pockets. He was on Bigger Pockets and we just reached out to him through that.
Yeah. Did you do other deals with him or was that the only one?
I'm not gonna lie, we have not really talked to him since, but he was great. I mean, totally. Honestly, we bought this house and we joined Subto the next week, and so I kind of just completely shifted off of that for now, And he's like a traditional realtor, so we just haven't connected as much since then.
Yeah.
You know, still got his number. I'm sure I'll do something with him at some point.
Yeah. How has the house hack experience been? Have you had any issues with it?
We've had a pretty above average experience, I think. I mean, so building that Airbnb took 3 months, in which in my head I was like, when we closed on the house, I was like, it's gonna take 2 weeks,
Yeah.
and I realized that I was undergoing a massive project. But when we finished it, we put it on Airbnb, and it's basically it's been on there now for a year and a half, and its lifetime occupancy is like 94%. It's basically booked every night, and it's awesome. So yeah, we've lucked out.
Do y'all manage it yourself or do you have that hired out?
We manage it, but that requires almost nothing if you learn. I mean, we had never done it before, so when I say we, my wife handles all this stuff. I don't do squat managing, but she read books about it and just like set up the electronic locks and the automations on Airbnb and the cleaner, and we just remodeled it on some stuff that I screwed up a couple weeks ago. But before that, I go in it like once every 3 months, so we really don't even look at it.
That's a good deal.
Yeah, it's awesome.
That's like I mean, yeah, I like to hear that because when I think about Airbnbs in my head, I'm like, it's so much work. And so, do you have tenants complain ever? Is it pretty smooth?
It's very smooth overall. You can't not have anyone complain,
Yeah.
right? So we certainly have. I am very intrigued with the model that we stumbled upon totally by accident, but if you saw, like, I wish I could throw up a picture of it. If you saw our studio apartment, it is tiny. Like I converted one room into a studio with a bathroom, right? So it's like very small. I think it's like 140 square feet or something, 130 square feet. So the thing is there's no room for stupid crap, right?
Yeah.
Like there's never been an issue with noise or parties or anything. Like it is built to only work for somebody that just needs a bed to sleep on at night, and that has been what's made it work so well. So yeah, I mean, we have people that are like, well, at one point we had a review that said the bed was too soft, and then the next person said the bed was too hard, like the next day. And I'm like, all right, well, besides this, we seem to be doing okay.
Yeah, you can't please everyone.
Definitely.
Well, that's good. Yeah, I'm glad you're having a good experience. I know sometimes you hear like horror stories with house hacking, and we had some trouble with the very first. We took on a tenant whenever we purchased it. She was just already there in place, so we really didn't know exactly what we were getting into. And it wasn't horrible, but there was definitely some rocky parts, and we were happy to get her out. But I'm glad that you guys are having a good experience. So you started house hacking, you got into Subto, you then started wholesaling.
Started trying everything for a while, which hopefully people listening to this can relate to. I mean, if you get into the world of creative finance or even the world of investing, like, one week you see somebody doing this thing, the next week you see somebody doing something else. How the heck are you supposed to know what the right thing is to do? I have some thoughts on that I kind of try to use, which was just like figuring out what I was good at, what I enjoyed, whatever. But the only real way I know to do that is trial and error. So I tried, like, I was doing the Lonza method at first, which for people that don't know is like um, reaching out to wholesalers for dead leads and stuff. So at one point I was waking up every morning at like 4 something in the morning and responding to like 150 Facebook DMs from all these random wholesalers and whatever. And I had no idea what I was doing. Um, Tried that. Then I got into multifamily, tried that, went like super hard on that for a while, and then decided that's not what I wanted to do. And I don't know. I tried some different things in and out. But wholesaling was the first thing that stuck. Yeah.
What do you feel like? What about wholesaling do you feel like made it stick for you?
I think the only thing I need is somebody that I feel like is in a similar position to me doing something successfully. And so Lonza Method was something I just like picked out of the blue. Didn't know anybody at the time. Multifamily, kind of the same thing. Shout out to KJ and Joseph and some of those people that I saw like kind of doing it and teaching it and all that. But Kevin, who's now one of my closest friends, started doing the on market wholesale stuff. And he was, a kid my age that was still pretty new, that was actively showing me how he was doing stuff. And that's all it takes for me. It's like, okay, I'm just going to copy exactly what they're doing. Like literally, I am the biggest proponent for stop trying to come up with your own stuff, right?
Yeah.
So for me, that was what it was. It was I finally saw somebody that was just doing it, and I'm very much of the opinion, like, shout out to Kevin, great dude, but Kevin's not a genius, right? And most of the people that I see doing stuff aren't, and I noticed that stuff, and I'm like, all right, this guy's not a genius, so whatever he's doing, I can do it too. And that was all it took for me to be like, all right, I'm just gonna focus on that.
Love that. Yeah, that's such a good mindset. I think that people try to seclude themselves and they're like, there's something special about that person. That's why they're being successful. And most of the time, that's not the case at all. And like you said, you can literally just replicate exactly what they're doing and probably see the same results.
Yeah, of almost anybody, right? And I would say the same thing about Pace. I mean, there's certainly things about Pace Morby that are not normal. Let's put that out there. As far as how much he cares for other people and just his drive and all that. But
Yeah.
at the foreground, like at the very beginning of all that, he still wasn't doing anything different. Like what we see now is just an insane compounding effect of working more hours than most humans work, more days than most humans work. But he still wasn't doing anything crazy. He just has time, and our problem is that we don't see time. We just see like now, now, now. But I mean, if you and I do what we're doing for the next 7 to 10 years, we could be in a position like Pace is if we want. Now, some people don't want, to live the crazy life that he lives, and I get that. But we could, like, it's possible.
Yeah. Yeah, that perspective. I get myself stuck in that sometimes. I'm like, sometimes I make myself feel so far behind from people like Pace. And then I'm like, first of all, Pace is over double my age and he has only been doing it for 5 years. I think people forget that. Now he's been in the industry for a lot longer, but specifically building this real estate company for around 5 years. And that's such a short time period in the bigger picture. And it took him a while to figure that out. So yeah, when you and I are so much younger and are figuring out and learning from mentors like that, I mean, there's so much we can do with it. It's really crazy. I have to remind myself, like, you're on the right track. Just keep doing these things and you'll get to where you need to be.
Yeah, 100%. The other thing I'll add on the timeline is I think time is less important than the reps that are equated to that time. So, like, when I think of pace as far as 5 years, what I think of is 5 years every day, like 10 plus days, right?
Yeah.
So I would either replicate that or it might take 20 years to do what he's done because it's a quarter. But one way or another,
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So whenever you started wholesaling, you were looking up to Kevin, other people in similar positions. Did you start building a team or were you just doing it solo?
started doing it solo because I did not know what it looked like to build a team. That's like a difficult concept, I think, for people. I mean, I was very secluded, like living in Jacksonville. There was some people that I connected with in Subto. Everybody was kind of doing different stuff. So I didn't know anybody. So I was like, I have it written down somewhere in my notebook, like find a partner. I was like, how does one do this? I don't know how to find a partner. But I didn't want to say, well, I'm not going to make phone calls until I find one, right? So I spent months doing like just solo calling, getting better at stuff. And it turns out if you do that enough and put yourself out there enough, then eventually you'll connect with the right people. So I did build a team eventually. It just took time and reps and getting better at it.
Yeah. I feel like I know you do, to me, you come off very strong as like a visionary, but I also see you do like building systems and things like that. Where do you fall in terms of the visionary versus integrator?
Yeah, I have no idea. Somewhere in between. Somewhere in between. For a while, everybody said that I was an integrator because I did like the systems for our team.
Yeah.
But I also like hosted Zooms for our team and like taught people how to do the calls. Like I just do what I'm good at. And I do think a lot of people fall into one or the other. But it's like there's so many things in the world that you can't really place people into one bucket or the other, you know. And
For
I'm certainly like that for this. So like the integrator tendencies, I am or was, I guess, an engineer. So I'm a nerd. I've been doing nerd stuff my whole life. I understand it. A lot of times you get thrown into stuff you're good at, right? So like I don't really want to do the systems, but I knew how to do them. So therefore I did, you know.
sure.
And now I do less of them and more of the visionary stuff because I think that's just what I'm better at slash enjoy more. But I don't know. It's a mix.
Yeah. Yeah. So you started building a team eventually. How long do you think you were doing it solo before you were like, let me bring on some people and start building this out?
I think I made my first phone call in like March or April of last year. I agreed to start working with Houston Bouquet, shout out Houston, in probably June. So March, April, May, like 3 months maybe ish
Yeah.
solo. And then him and I started bringing people on to call for us pretty soon after that.
Okay. A lot of people that, so I know you're doing direct to agent on market for the most part, right?
Yep.
Wholesaling. So that's a lot of, at least what I think, people that are tuning into this, that's a lot of what they're doing. Do you have any tips or lessons you learned with going direct to agent? Was it mostly creative deals or was it cash?
100% creative. Yep.
Okay. Do you have any tips for, you guys were obviously doing quite a bit of deals. You built out this team, you were helping people get deals done. What tips or lessons do you have for people that are in the same position, getting started, trying to do the direct to agent on market creative thing?
Yeah, so I still we still host a power hour and I talk about a lot of this stuff and some of the main things and I maybe you have different views than me. I know everybody does it a little bit differently for sure. One of my main things that I always taught was just the importance of I haven't like coined how to say this well, but like diagnosing based off of what they're saying and not just telling them what to do. So for me, what that looks like when I was teaching people was just like stop getting on the phone and offering creative because that's what everybody else does. And if nothing else, I just like to be different on that front. But the way I got all my deals was reversing that and just understanding the situation. And I played like the reverse on them, I guess, and would say, why isn't this selling on market? Can I make a cash offer at half the value of the house? Is that going to work? No, why not? Can we do this? And then I would rule all this stuff out and I'd say, okay, well, based off of all that, you know, would something like this work? And I would kind of work backwards based on what they said, or if they were like, they don't need to sell the house or they're in the military and they're going to reuse their eligibility and, stuff like anything that told me that it wasn't the right time, then I would just say, cool, no problem. Let me know if that changes. And that was it. And remember me and I would send them a follow-up text or whatever, but I would just move on.
Yeah.
Really trying to focus on diagnosing the people that needed my help, right? Because usually one of every 100 to 200 people really needed help. And so I was like, guys, quit wasting time on the ones that don't. Go find the people that do. And that was a big one. I think another really big one that I've realized more and more is that for those of you guys that do call on market agents, the phone calls, I'm not going to say they're easy, but they are simple. It's the same objections every time. And it stresses people out. And I get it. Like, if you guys are new, I get it. It's stressful. But I noticed towards when I was kind of to the end of when I was making my own calls, like, I could go outside and shoot hoops and take these seller calls and like overcome all the objections while focusing on a basketball hoop or like staring into the stars because it wasn't like, oh gosh, they came up with that one. There's like whatever, there's 6 or 7 objections, like, and I already know the answers to them, and I've said them now 1,000 times. And not only do I know the answers, but I'm confident in the answers. And that's what I teach people is like, you need to get on the phones, get asked those questions, and get those butterflies in your chest, and hang up the phone and go figure it out. And if you do that 100 times, like, this stuff really is simple. It becomes very simple, and it's not, like people always, I feel like, want to reach out or send a DM or post on Facebook like, guys, I've got this crazy scenario. And it's like, maybe sometimes, sometimes it's like a really random something, but usually it's not. It's usually just the same stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man, what you said about not chasing the people that are not interested and that don't actually need the solution. That can be really hard when you're first starting because you want to cling to every potential opportunity.
Yep.
And I get that a lot. And at this point, I mean, there's so many. Once you actually start getting a flow of leads that need your help, I think it becomes a lot easier to say, okay, moving on. I don't need to waste my time emailing this person or calling this person. You said you don't need me. Let me go find someone who does. I get that a lot. People like sending leads and like trying to force the deal on someone that doesn't actually need it. And I think it comes down to like you as the caller, you need to accept that this solution is not for everyone. And no matter how you can try to craft it to be for that person, it just may not be. And you have to be okay with it not being the solution for everyone and be okay with moving on to the next one and finding the person that it is the solution for.
Yeah. And you nailed that on the head, right? Like I talk about that all the time. If anybody asks me more than twice about one lead, they do not have nearly enough leads. That's just a fact of the matter. And that's another thing that's hard to understand when you're new. Like I was the same way. Every morning I wake up and think about, oh man, 123 Main Street. I hope I can convert that person. But like the real test, the real thing that's going to tell you if you are doing the work the way that you should to be successful in this is that you don't even remember what the address of that property is because you have 100 more that you're following up with. And shout out to the world of CRMs because you should have that stuff getting followed up on automatically or whatever. And that's when I knew that we had enough leads was when my partner would call and say, hey, have you heard anything from 123 Main Street? And I'd be like, which one is 123 Main Street? I don't remember. Right. And I know Jade knows the same thing because you have enough leads. And if you are that worried about one, I mean, shout out to luck if you can get it. But if you don't want to rely on luck, then go get 100 more.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's thousands of listings out there and most of them probably don't need your solution, but your job is to go find the ones that do. So go focus on that. Your energy and your time is expensive. You need to use it towards things that are actually going to pay you back and pay the other people back too. So yeah, I love that. It's hard to remember that in the beginning. So you built the team. How long did you have your team going?
I don't know when we built them. I guess we started probably hiring people in June or July, and stopped maybe Christmas. So 6 months, 5 months, something like that.
Yeah. And at that point, I found this super interesting that I know you've posted this on YouTube and whatnot, that you decided to completely shut everything down and stop wholesaling.
Yeah, there is one step in between that. So we stopped, we quit having our team and we transitioned to a JV model where we were just having our lead flow come into us from more sources. And we actually did it out of the idea of trying to help our current team because the model that we were using of like them having to make a certain amount of calls and be at our meetings, it wasn't flexible enough for them. And so it wasn't working for them and it wasn't working for us. It was like nobody was winning.
Yeah.
So we transitioned to help them and in the process, help more people, which is kind of everybody's goal is like work with people, help people get their first deals. So we switched into that and I will say it worked really well. And I know you guys, do plenty of those as well. We had way more leads coming in when we did that. So that was the in-between. But yes, soon after we switched, I stopped wholesaling for other reasons that I'm sure we'll get into.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so interesting. Yeah, we kind of did the same thing where we had a team and then we were kind of like, we were getting so many leads from JV and you get more leads and you're helping a lot more people at the same time. And like now we do these big community Zooms multiple times a week where we get to help a large group of people that all have questions and can all benefit from this and do the deal breakdowns. And yeah, we're getting so many leads. And like we helped 3 newbies last week get their first deal, which is like so exciting for them, but for us, like I love doing that. It's so much fun. So So you started getting all these leads from people and then you're like, let's turn it off.
Yeah, well, there's just more going on. So on the side, I was doing my lending business, which we'll get into, and the short version is that my lending business was making more money and was taking up less time, and it's something that I just enjoyed more. So everybody, everybody that's watching this is going to be in a different situation. I was in a situation where I didn't need to do something that I didn't enjoy as much. And so that coupled with a bunch of my friends sitting down and telling me that I should stop doing one thing and focus on the other, that combination is why I ended up switching things up.
What became or just was the whole time not enjoyable to you about doing the wholesale business?
It wasn't unenjoyable the whole time at all. I mean, there's this. There's very high highs, right, and there's also very low lows, which is fine. I think that's true of any like entrepreneurship style thing, especially when you're getting started. Um, for me, it didn't fit in with my future goals, and I'm maybe not obsessed, but I very much like everything that I do. I really try and think out in the future because I like to be contrarian, and I feel like most people all they do is think about the present. But I know that the best things in life are usually the ones that are delayed gratification, and so for me, like just putting it out there, some of my goals and stuff is like I travel a lot. I like to be flexible. I like to go out of country on trips, things like this. And so those things require doing work that doesn't require me to answer the phone at 10:30 at night within 10 seconds and be ready to nail a pitch, right? And so for me, it was like I could have continued wholesaling, and a lot of people ask why I didn't. And there is a lot of factors that went into it, but the one of the biggest ones was although I could have kept doing it now, I didn't want to continue doing it for the next 5 years. It didn't fit with what I wanted to do. And so for me personally, the second I realized that, I just turned it off. A lot of people I get wouldn't, like, especially if wholesale is your like livelihood as far as income, which it wasn't for me. So I had the luxury, I guess you could call it, of being able to make that decision, which I'm super grateful for.
Yeah. I think what's powerful about that to me is just the being able to acknowledge and realize what fits your goals and what doesn't, not just going along with, because I mean, when you're in Facebook groups and you're in this community, wholesaling is what most people do, or a lot of people do. So it's kind of like that FOMO, but you sat down and like, what works for me? What's my long-term plan? Does this fit my lifestyle? Does this fit my goals? Do I really want to do this? And, sometimes you have to do it, but sometimes if you have, the ability to sit down and really determine what your goals is, what's your personality, what do you enjoy, that's so powerful because you aren't just doing this for the short term. I mean, this is a long-term plan. Building a wholesale business is a lot. It's not a 3-month plan. This is years and years of work that goes into it. So that's super powerful that you sat down and determined, should I move forward with this or should I not?
Yeah, and goals change too, right? Like that one is a kicker because a lot of people think that I'm going to make this decision and I got to make the right decision because the rest of my life's going to rely on it. No, it's not. Like
Yeah.
my goals. I mean, I just said how many different things I tried when I was getting started. Like, and it'll take too long, but I could boil down to why I made each decision I made. Like when I was doing multifamily, it was because I loved my job and I wanted to stay there for 10 years and I wanted to build like a super, like make money in the future type thing. And then things changed and stuff happened at my job and I hated my job. And then it was like, okay, well, this changed. So my actions need to change as a result. Right. And
Yeah.
that has a snowball effect. So like, no matter what decision you make, if you're not reevaluating your goals and then changing your actions based on them, then you're just going to be miserable.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Do you have any I just feel like this is something you research. Do you have any books or anything that you recommend around goals or just nailing down what your future looks like that type of those type of things to read?
Ooh, I'm not a big reader, but I have started reading more books since I got into this whole entrepreneurship development thing. The one I'm reading right now is called The One Thing. I don't know if you've read that book, but it's actually a really good book. And it is one of the things that I like to center goals around a lot. And, um, I can caveat into saying that it's one of the reasons why I chose to stop wholesaling is just focusing on the main one. So, like, if I have 10 goals, if I want to be an Olympic athlete and I want to go climb the highest mountain and, whatever your random goals are, like, which one matters the most is kind of a guiding light. And I think that's so hard to quantify because, a lot of people, their goal is probably monetary. And I would argue that your goal is not monetary. You just don't understand how to quantify what your actual goal is. So you just think I need to make more money, but why? Like, why do you actually feel like you need it? So I don't know. That's my one book I'll throw out there just because what I'm reading right now. But the thing that I really always try and reevaluate is just, am I focusing on the one thing? And it's okay, if other things trickle in there. But shoot, if you look at anybody, I mean, literally, the only one that's kind of crazy is Elon Musk. But everybody else, like, they just did one thing,
Yeah.
So that's what I mean, shoot, if they do it well and you can see that clear blueprint, then I want to copy it. Like I said, that's all I do is copy.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think it's like just going back to real estate and that concept of like looking at pace, who does, I know he doesn't do this as much anymore, but wholesale, holding single family, doing multifamily, doing pad split, like doing all these things. And I think it can feel like, oh, I should be doing all of those things right now. And you forget to realize that Pace didn't start doing all those things. He probably started with wholesaling and then he added some rentals and then he added more rentals and then he got into multifamily and then he got into business buying. Like he didn't start out by doing all 12 things at once. It's a slow progression and you have to get to a point where you're stable and secure in your one thing and you don't lose focus on that thing. Like you have a team that can run that thing or whatever, and then you can add to your goals and start going after the other things you're interested in.
Yeah. And that's the side of it too, right? Like even you bring up Pace. Pace does have, some wholesale and some single family and some multifamily, but he doesn't do all of those things. He doesn't do any of that, right? He still has one goal, and his goal is to build community and teach people about creative finance. So what we see as the results of his one goal, you may think of as 10 different things, but it's really not. He is going after one thing. It's just, years ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So your one thing now is lending.
It's my one thing for now.
How did you land there?
Copy whatever Kevin does. That's how I started. Same thing, right? So when I was, or after I'd been doing wholesale stuff for a little bit, I hung out with Kevin and he was showing me his stuff and he was showing me how the lending was working. And he was like, you should try to do a couple. So I tried to do a couple, and then he was like, let's stay in touch and like try and see how we can help each other get into it and whatever. And snowball effect later, like I said, I was making more money lending than I was wholesaling. And so it was, there's a lot of factors. One of the things that I have become obsessed with in business is scalability. And for me, and actually, this isn't just for me, this is just kind of a fact of the matter. You can lend $1,000 or $1,000,000, and it takes on or about the same amount of time and effort, right? Almost like how people talk about multifamily, if you want to talk about buying real estate. A little bit more effort, but you can buy 100 units instead of one. And it's the same thing with lending, where I have now started getting into these deals where I'm lending, hundreds of thousands of dollars, but it still takes the same amount of effort as lending 1,000. And when I saw that and then like started acting on it and believing that it was true, that's enough. Like scalability is, it gets me excited. It's like I could not make any money, or I could make a ton of money. What's the in between? I don't know. I mean, I'm still in the midst of it and learning from it. But it's just something that I was enjoying, and I had proof, right? I had evidence that it was working for me. When I was doing both, I was making more money doing this. So it wasn't just a like, oh, let me go chase that, that other shiny object. It was like, I'm doing this thing and it's working well. And the thing that was brought up to me in the mastermind I was in, where everybody told me that I needed to quit wholesaling, was you're doing this thing really well and you're not even spending any time like trying. So like, what happens if you give yourself 3 months and go try,
Yeah.
right? And that's what made it my thing for now.
Yeah. I'm sure we have gators watching. In our Discord group, we have a ton of gators that are trying to get their first deal and trying to get that traction. Do you have any tips or just telling your story about how you started to get the traction being a lender?
Yeah, it's like, it's when you know how you do stuff and you don't really think enough about it, and then people start asking that question. So
Yeah.
I've tried figuring out how to work that out more. I made a free group, not to push this on the podcast, but I made a free group for people to just like kind of learn more from me in a more like a smaller setting than my YouTube, where I can go over stuff more specifically.
Yeah.
So it's on School. If you guys have heard of School, it's called Financial Foundations and it's free. And that's where I've been sending everybody to try and get out of the world of like DMing people one on one,
Yeah.
right? And so my short long answer to that of what I did was I just started doing something. That's all it really was for me, was like, maybe to go a little further, I was ready, right? So like, if somebody's watching this or somebody in your Discord, Jade, that's in Gator, the question, like the opening question that I always ask people when they DM me or call me or whatever is, if okay, you want to Gatorland, if I was to ask you for $10,000 right now and I needed it in the next 10 minutes, could you do it? That's always my question. And if you say yes, that doesn't necessarily mean you're like ready to roll. But if you say no, then you're definitely
Yeah.
willing to bet that most people are going to say no, right? And for me, I can tell you exactly what I did, and I wish I should go back and try and find like the text I sent, but I texted a couple of my friends and said, hey, this weekend I want to sit down with you. I want to learn how these contracts work. I want to learn how to set up like intake forms, right, and all that.
Yeah.
And I want to learn how to set up a bank account to send money. Like, I just want to learn everything that I can about how this process works. And then starting next week, I'm going to go do it. Like, I have that message somewhere. And literally that week, I had somebody say, hey, we do 5 to 10 deals a month, and we're looking for somebody to fund our earnest money. Are you able to do that? We have a deal that needs funding by the end of today. And it's one of those things that like you would think it would never happen. And then there it was. And
Yeah.
of course, I already had my contracts like pre-uploaded on DocuSign, and I had my bank account ready, and I had studied the contracts that weekend to learn what they said and all that. And so I was like, yeah, let's do it. I can wire the money right now, right? I was ready to go. And that, it's not necessarily going to happen like that for everybody, but you should give yourself a chance, right? And most people are not even giving themselves a chance if they're not fully ready. So let's start there. That's my like very baseline, at least be ready.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah, I've ran into that too, where someone's like, "Oh, I want to do gator lending," and it's like, "Okay, well, we have this opportunity," and they're like, "Wait, I'm not actually ready for it." And it's like, you have to be ready if you want the opportunity to work out for you.
Yeah.
So I like that. Be prepared, do your studying, be ready when someone comes to you to snatch the opportunity up and get it done.
Yeah. And just be educated on the topic, right? So like, I think you guys are starting to do some lending, right? So if somebody wants to get into gator lending, they should know exactly what Jade lends on, right? Or if they wanted to work with me, they should know exactly what I lend on. Like, these are the types of things. Your confidence comes from like the clarity in what you're trying to do. And so if they know exactly, if I was the most specific lender ever and I said, I only lend on houses that are on Main Street in Dallas, and it's like the most specific thing ever. Yeah, that's going to be hard to find, but holy crap, if you find a house on Main Street in Dallas, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what Ryan lends on.
Yeah.
So get clear on that stuff. And then when the opportunity presents itself, you won't have to do the whole like, I wonder if this will. It's like, no, you know that that's the right opportunity. And if you can't do it yourself, you can bring it to Jade or whoever and make some money, get the deal done.
Yeah. Yeah. So you got prepared, then you started putting yourself out there. I'm here to help with gator lending, or I can do X, Y, and Z. And you just started networking with people in the business that you knew were doing deals.
Yeah, same approach as I used in wholesale. This is why I preach it so much. So I didn't go to people and say, "Hey, take my money," or "Hey, you should use me." Like I've seen some kids that are trying to post stuff about like, "This is why you should use my money for your EMD or whatever." I didn't do that at all. It was like, "Hey, I saw." I mean, and this is hopefully people can see this and actually get like some real life examples. Like, "Hey, I saw you post a bunch of deals in the free group," or "I saw you trying to sell a deal," or whatever. What does your business look like? You know, what is your what's it called, bottleneck, right? And if you network enough, if you're connected enough in whatever real estate community you're in, then just point them in the right direction. So like if I got somebody today that I spoke to and they said, well, I just really need help learning how to make calls with agents. I don't do that stuff anymore, but I'll send them to Jade and be like, hey, I know this person that can be really helpful for that, right? And that's how you actually add value. Like if people just focused on adding value, then it'll come back. But if you just tell everybody like, oh, I just want to lend you money, they're like, shut up, dude. I don't that's not what I need help with. Right.
Yeah.
So that has been my approach the whole time. Is like you will find people that need EMD and you'll find people that need double closing and you'll find people that need gap funding and whatever. Which side note, if you want to get into lending, you should understand all the different types of lending so that you know what people mean when they talk about it, which is still not something I'm the best at, but I'm working on. And then you can point them in the right direction. And if you get the person that needs the EMD, then you've already provided them value, and they're going to want to return it. They're gonna want to work with you.
Yeah.
So that's really how I built it up. The only other thing I'll add to that I was talking about earlier in our community was like, remember that the people you talk to now are not going to be the same person in 6 months if they're on the same track of growth as you are. So,
Yeah.
like, there are multiple people that I do a high volume of deals with now that when I connected with them and talked to them about my lending business, they didn't do any deals. They didn't have any idea what they were doing. So I just explained to them what I did, because people will say, what are you up to? Like if somebody asked me that today, I'd say, I lend on this, this, and this. This is some examples of what my deals look like. These are the types of people I work with. And then they have a good idea of, if I ever become that person that Ryan just talked about, then I'll hit them up. And sometimes they show back up.
Yeah, that's so good. Like, don't write people off just because they aren't fitting your box of person that you're looking for right now. That doesn't mean that they won't ever be someone that you can do business with. People grow and change all the time, and you guys may be able to come together later down the road.
100%.
That's awesome. So you're focusing on just getting really good at being a better lender, expanding that business. Like, what does it look like to be solely focusing on this now?
Way different, which is crazy to think about, because the reason I didn't solely focus on it for so long is because it was so simple. It was just like a very small thing. But as I've gone on, I've added, so I'm way more active on social media now. So like I post on my YouTube every week. I post a long form video and I do short form stuff, and I'm basically fully focusing now on just teaching other people how to do it. And there's two reasons behind that. One is it goes back to the JV model, right? So like I now have people come to me that find lending deals and don't know how to do them, and we do it together and split the profits. I make money. They learn how I do my systems, and they make money. It's awesome. And one of my favorite things about getting people their first deal is that it gives them the belief that it's possible, right? Which is the same feeling that you get for your wholesale deals. It's just this stuff is possible.
Yep.
So I spend a significant amount of my time now doing that. And it's a very interwoven, like it's a mixture of branding and social media. And now I'm like trying to build communities, but the intention behind it is just creating opportunity and teaching more people how to do the same thing. Because, I didn't mention this earlier, but I quit my job off of my income from lending. So I'm like, living proof that you can do that. And most everybody's goal that we talk to is, I want to quit my job, right? So if I can show you how to do what I did and you can quit your job, why would I not? If I can.
Yeah. And for people that aren't like too familiar with lending, you're not just doing gator lending, you're doing other types of lending, right?
So gator lending is a very like loose term for people that don't know. We're really talking about transactional lending, which is like any lending that goes into real estate. But technically, I am just doing gator lending, so I only lend earnest money. So that's the only type of lending I've done. So yeah, I'm assuming most people in here know what earnest money is, but I'm usually lending the down payment for wholesalers. That's essentially all I'm doing.
Got it. Okay. And I'm curious about your school thing. So it's basically I haven't seen I've seen lots of people start going towards that platform, and I haven't looked into it too much, but is it essentially just similar to like Facebook where you guys can network in there? Do you host Zooms in there or what do you do?
Yeah, so it's similar to Facebook, but as you know, Facebook is not great with groups. So my school has it's like a gosh, I don't even know how to describe it, but like it's like a Discord or a Slack as far as channels, right? So we have a channel for dispoing deals, for lending on deals. We have a channel for like wins, just like any wins that you have in the day, whatever. We've got channels like that, and then it has courses built into it. So imagine we've got Discord, and then we've got like Kajabi on top of that. So I have courses in there. So like I have a mini gator lending course in mine. I have like a getting started in real estate course in there. So you've got that. And then you add on live Zooms. So I've done like Q&As. I have a webinar coming up on lending safety that I'm really excited about because that is by far the most asked question. So I'm doing like challenges, webinars, Zooms. It's all in there. It's awesome.
That's so cool. I'm gonna go get in there after this.
Yeah, it's really fun. And it's I'm trying to recreate the same thing that people created for me, which is like you look at somebody like Pace, and some people have the drive to be like, I'm going to do what he's doing. But a lot of people feel like they're too far behind. And so they convince themselves not to start at all. And so for me, I feel like I can be that in between because it's like, yes, I'm doing well now with the lending business. But 9 months ago, I still have my job and I had never made a dollar. Right. So like we're not that far removed. So I've just kind of tried to make something that's smaller, a little bit more intimate, but at the same time, it's just like, hey, these are the principles that I've used and learned. And I always talk like I talk all the time about the fact that like all I ever talk about is what I've done. And maybe I got lucky. I don't know, but I'll at least let you know in case it's helpful.
Yeah. Do you think for the average person getting started in real estate, just you don't know too much about the personality or anything, just the average person, do you think it's easier to get started in wholesaling or transactional lending?
Gosh, I hate to tell somebody one or the other.
Yeah.
I really think it depends on what you want to do, but because you wanted me to give a flat answer, I'll just say I think that wholesaling is more available. There's more options. Like there's so many ways to wholesale. You can get lucky. We helped a girl get her first deal that had just like learned about real estate, and she just knew that her neighbor down the street, like they were having trouble selling their house, right?
Yeah.
That girl ended up making like a couple $1,000s, right? So like I think that's easier because conceptually, not only is it simple, but it's like, if you go on YouTube right now and type in wholesale, you could spend the next 10 years of your life watching videos. If you go
Yeah.
on YouTube and type in transactional lending, you'll probably see a picture of my face and Pace's face. Like there's just not that much out there, right?
Right.
That's what I would say. I think once you become educated on lending, it can absolutely be a very scalable, powerful way to make money. But to be fair, lending is fueled from wholesaling. So somebody's got to keep wholesaling so that we can keep lending.
True, true. They go hand in hand for sure.
Yep.
So what's the rest of your 2024 look like? You recently made the shift to this focus. So what's the rest of the year look like in regards to growing your business?
I struggle with having a super advanced vision. The major things that are happening. So currently I live in Jacksonville, Florida. We are moving to Phoenix, Arizona.
Oh,
So
cool.
that's a semi-large move across the country.
Yeah.
Um, that'll be a large highlight point. We're going to be buying a quadplex in Phoenix to live in, or kind of house back, I guess. Um, probably buy another 10 to 20 units out in Phoenix is the goal. Just closed on our first buy and hold Subto in Phoenix, so that's fun.
Congrats. That's exciting.
Yeah, yeah. So that goes. The furnishing and all that stuff is done, I think, as of today. So that should be getting listed here in probably tomorrow or in a couple days. So we'll buy a couple units. We're gonna move to Phoenix. I will continue posting on YouTube once a week, which is a lot easier said than done. Takes up a lot of time. Um, and I'll probably just see what the opportunities come as a result of that stuff. I think between figuring out how to buy my 20 units and staying consistent with the social media and now this new, community branch that I've added in,
Yeah.
not exactly dilly-dallying. So I think I've got kind of my hands full. And the way I like to play the game is just keep doing the thing and try and do it well. So like I'm not necessarily trying to add more stuff. It's like my YouTube, for example. Every video gets better, but like it's very average, right? So for me, I don't want it to stay average. I want to figure out how can I make this better, and then how can I do that better, and then how can I become more engaging, because if I become more engaging, it's going to help more people. Like I think fine tuning maybe is how I would describe that stuff. Like just fine tuning the processes that I'm already using to really try and amplify. And then I've learned that if I just keep doing that and kind of let everything else happen, then opportunities will present themselves as long as I'm doing the work. So
For sure. For sure. What's the saying? Luck is preparation meets opportunity. Is that the saying?
something like that. I think the quote that I always hear is the harder I work, the luckier I get.
Mm, yeah.
So
So true. Are you guys going to keep your house in Florida?
definitely, it crushes it.
Yeah. Are you going to make the other side an Airbnb too?
That we don't know yet. We have not gotten that far. Probably, I'm probably just gonna leave it like it is. We remodeled the whole house. It's an old house, so we like did a live-in flip, I guess, or whatever. Remodeled it while we lived here. So yeah, we'll probably Airbnb it. If it doesn't do well, we'll do something else. The nice thing about rentals here is that we've lived here now for a year and a half, so we've got enough roots to like be easily connected to help if we need it.
Yeah. Are you just moving to Phoenix just to be closer to community?
Yep, proximity, and well, mostly proximity. We also like adventure, and we lived in Montana before we lived in Florida. So
Okay.
we used to be very much more adventurous than we are currently, and we want to get back to that.
Yeah. Well, cool. How can people find more about you? Where can people find you? Where do people reach out about you? I'll throw the school back up here. Go join that. I'm definitely going to go join that after we get off here.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to find me now. I don't know if you can still see my handle, but it was up on the screen. It's at Schrope_321. I'm a lot easier to find now than I was. If you type that in, it's the same on everything, and you'll see a bunch of pictures of my face acting all surprised and pointing at stuff on YouTube and whatever junk that people do now. So yeah, people can find me on there. You can always DM me. I'm more responsive than I probably should be to DMs and messages and stuff. So yeah, pretty easy to reach. Come join the school community if you just want to get around other people that are trying to learn about lending. I'm doing my best to teach as many people as I can, whatever the heck I know, if it's helpful.
Is your lending box pretty easy to find on your social medias if people want to JV with you on deals or use you as a lender?
Yeah, I talk about it on YouTube a lot. The school community, I've got it in there on what I'm working for. If you're watching this and you need lending, what I would say is I can help you with any lending. Let's put it that way. And that's how I like to do it. So, come to me if you need anything and I'll try and point you in the right direction. The only thing I'll say is if you're going to reach out to me and ask for long-term lending, which most every DM I get seems to be about that now because people know that I lend money. I don't do that. That's just not what I do. And no, I'm not going to refer you to my lenders because you need to go find your own. But besides that, I'm happy to, if it's double close or bridge loan or whatever, like I'm happy to try and point people in the right direction. So send me a message.
Awesome. This was fun. I think you provided a lot of value to people. You have an interesting journey and just kind of figuring out your entrepreneurial, where you fit in, what you like, where you've been successful at many things. So it's been cool to watch you grow and continue to grow. Definitely excited to see what you have going on in school, and I hope people reach out to you to get you some more lending deals.
Yeah, we'll see. Hopefully, this was helpful for you guys. Jade, I appreciate you having me on and
Yeah.
see what we can do.
Well, cool. Thank you guys, anyone that tuned in watching, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thanks, guys.